continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.
Many thanks for joining us on today's edition of Razep Africa. As you know, here we give you all you need to know about Africa, what's going on across the continent, this beautiful continent of ours, and how we can improve. Of course, that's the reason why we have Razep Africa show. How can Africa improve? How can we become the continent of our dreams? That's what we'll be discussing. And today we are discussing something very important. As you already know, we always bring you these topics that get you ready and rethink your position. Now we are taking it to dignity after 65, rethinking how Africa supports its senior citizen. What are you doing to support the senior citizen? That's the conversation we'll be having. And in the studio with me this beautiful morning is the beautiful Dr. Stella Dogu. She's an advocate for senior citizens' welfare. She is an author and so much more. The producer of a podcast. I'm sure some of you would have stumbled on that very interesting podcast on Quarter Past 65. That's the name of the podcast, Quarter Past 65. So good to have you join us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right. It's wonderful to have you around. You're looking beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me adjust.
Right. To look
because I want to look
beautiful.
even more beautiful.
That's good to know. Okay. But well, as usual, we'll start with the news, African news updates. Then we get to the conversation. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, it'll be time for the African news updates. Stay with us.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.
Welcome back. We begin in Kenya, where families of young men recruited to fight for Russia in the war in Ukraine have taken their protests to Parliament in Nairobi, holding photographs of their sons, some wounded, others still missing. the families demanded government intervention to bring them home. They also called on lawmakers to ban the recruitment of Kenyan citizens to fight in foreign wars. Human rights groups say many of the young men were lured with promises of employment abroad before being sent to battlefield. Kenyan authorities say more than 1,000 citizens were recruited to fight for Russia. With at least 89 still believed to be on the front lines, one death has been confirmed, while dozens have been hospitalized or remain missing as investigations into the recruitment network continue. Meanwhile, in Angola, the government has secured financial guarantees from the World Bank and its multilateral investment guarantee agency to support a major debt for education swap aimed at expanding school infrastructure. The agreement would allow Angola to buy back up to $400 million of expensive commercial debt using a lower-cost loan backed by the international institutions. Officials say the savings generated from the reduced debt payment will be redirected towards building new schools and strengthening the country's education system. The initiative is only second debt for education swap supported by the World Bank after a similar program launched in Ivory Coast in 2024, signaling growing interest in using debt restructuring to finance development priorities. And in Somalia, the country has taken a significant step towards electoral reform after Parliament approved a new constitution that will allow lawmakers to be directly elected by the public for the first time. Previously, members of Parliament were selected through a system where clan elders chose lawmakers who then voted for the president. Prime Minister Hamza Abdi Barre described the decision as a historic milestone in Somalia's democratic development. However, the vote passed despite a boycott by opposition groups. An amendment to the constitution also extended President Hassan Sheikh Mohamedu's mandate by 1 year, raising questions about when nationwide elections would actually take place. In West Africa, a new report is warning about the rapid spread of synthetic drugs across the region, describing it as a growing public health and security crisis. Researchers say the drug market is shifting from traditional plant-based narcotics to synthetic substances such as methamphetamine and powerful opioids, including tramadol and nitazines. Experts warn that the impact is being felt most heavily among young people with rising cases of addiction, overdose, and severe mental health problems. The report says low production costs, easy access to precursor chemicals, and expanding global supply chains have enabled new criminal networks to enter the market, prompting calls for coordinated regional action. Meanwhile, in Zambia, the International Monetary Fund says negotiations for a new financial support program may stretch beyond the country's general elections scheduled for August. Zambia recently completed a $1.7 billion IMF program that helps stabilize the economy after a lengthy debt restructuring process. The IMF says technical discussions on a successor arrangement could begin in April, but deeper negotiations would likely take place after elections when a new government is in office. While the fund says Zambia's economic outlook remains positive, it has also warned of rising fiscal pressures linked to public spending and election-related costs. And finally, immigration policies affecting Africans abroad are under scrutiny after the United Kingdom announced it will stop issuing study visas to nationals of Cameroon and Sudan. British authorities say the move follows a sharp increase in asylum claims from students who initially entered the country legally on study visas. The UK government says applications from students from the two countries have surged significantly in recent years, raising concerns about misuse of the visa system. Officials say the policy is aimed at protecting Britain's asylum process, though critics argue it could restrict educational opportunities for African students seeking to study overseas. That's it for the African News Update. Now the conversation about senior citizens. We are talking about the development which often focus on youth populations, innovations and economic growth. Yet quietly and steadily, another demographic is growing. The continent's senior citizens. These are men and women who build families, communities and nations, but who often face their later years with limited institutional support. Back here in Nigeria and across most of African countries, aging populations confront a number of challenges: inadequate healthcare systems, limited pension coverage, social isolation, and weak social protection structures. According to the United Nations Population Division, Africa's population aged 60 and above is projected to triple by 2050. Despite this rapid growth, policy, infrastructure, and public discourse around aging remains largely underdeveloped. For many elder citizens, retirement does not necessarily bring security or dignity. Pension delays, rising healthcare costs, and absence of structured elderly services often leave families bearing the full burden of support at the same time. Traditional community support systems that once protected elderly are gradually also weakening to urbanization, migration, and economic pressures. Now, this makes the work of advocates like Dr. Stella Dogu particularly significant. As an author, media producer, and the anchor of the Quarter Past 65 podcast, she has been at the forefront of raising awareness about the welfare of senior citizens in Nigeria through storytelling, advocacy, and policy engagement. She continues to push for stronger systems that ensure that older citizens live not just longer, but better. Thank you so much for being part of the program.
Thank you.
It's so wonderful when I went through the work that you do, sometimes in communities, in underserved communities, engaging these people. One time we had a conversation where you said you have a community of these senior citizens.
Yes, I do.
What motivated you to even start looking at this age group that, like we had established, is often ignored, not just by institutions of government, but by citizens themselves? Even sometimes you don't remember to call your parents for so long. What made you look into this?
Excuse me.
Excuse.
I don't know what it is that's giving me the dry air. When I turned 75, by the way, my mother is going to be 100 years old.
Wow.
This year in November.
Wow.
And she has always been in the thick of things, because she said that I will not, allow anybody to marginalize me.
Right.
I don't wait for anybody. And so these are the kind of mantras that she always had. And I turned 75 2 years ago. And it was like, I have a foundation, the Ayamara Foundation, and I had always just looked out for widows, orphans, here and there, the older population. And then I focused on girls, because, we are always talking about girls.
Absolutely.
And the fact that we need to take care of them more. But at 75, I said, wait a minute, I need to include this population. Because I looked at myself, and it was like, nobody was paying attention to me anymore.
Exactly.
It's like your time has passed.
That's the social isolation that is
That's
often
the social.
Yeah.
Sometimes we impose it on ourselves, but a lot of times the people would say from where I come, Male, your time don't pass. Ya, ekrolo no ojere, and then because of that, we too put on ourselves what I call self-ageism.
Right.
People age you, and because of your age, they say, oh, you're no longer important. But what about when you do it to yourself? I looked at your introduction, and I said, wow, did I have a conversation with her for her to put all of those things down? But it is the truth. these people have spent 30, 40 years in active service. Not only the military or the police, not the people in the armed forces, but the teachers, the farmers, the nurses, the doctors, all of those professionals. They've spent so much time taking care of
communities,
us,
exactly.
of communities. And then, now that they're supposed to retire, put their feet up, swing on the hammock, nobody's taking care. And so what do? How do we strengthen this sensitization? How do we deepen it? How do we ensure that there's enough continuous information about this particular population? Like you had in your introduction, by 2030, or some people say by 2050, there would be more than 60% of the elderly.
The population would have tripled.
They would have tripled. So what are we going to do? So I said, well, let us begin the sensitization. Let us also deepen the advocacy. And even though I'm not in government, but I know that government did a good job in, was it 2020, when they set up the senior citizens program. And they're doing, but we can't leave it all to government. We on our own need to be drawing attention to of the plight of the elderly to government, but we too need to be doing something in our own different corners, because whether we like it or not, we're going to get there.
Absolutely. I mean, that's for a concept that everyone should prepare for.
Everyone should prepare for when they get older. Not only in terms of the money that they spend, but also to understand some of the
peculiar
challenges that they must go through as older people. And then, as we are talking about advocacy, what the government needs to do in terms of securing social structures for them, in terms of their health, in terms of transportation. Sometimes we take these things for granted.
True.
But it's important for the older person not to be homebound. If you're not homebound because you're physically challenged or due to health, you need to go somewhere.
Right.
But you can't go somewhere because the system hasn't gotten a structure to accommodate you. Whereas in other climates, it's a thing
of pride.
It's a thing of pride.
I mean, in the UK, for instance, you have free transportation as soon as you are 60.
And you were talking about pensions. Look at what happens to the pensioners. So we're engaging with the pensioners to say, what are the real issues that you're facing? And how can we, at 65, help you? And also, all of these people who've spent all of that time, some of them have been given training, development by government. All of those years, they've gone for training, retraining, and things like that. And should they just go and play dead somewhere with all of that information
and
all
knowledge.
of that wisdom and all of that knowledge? So we should be able to bring them out to even mentor themselves or even mentor the younger ones, because we're talking about the intergenerational gap. How do we fill that intergenerational gap? And then there's some senior citizens who never had children. Are they going to be abandoned? Is it our responsibility? Should we have programs such as adopt a grandma, adopt a grand aunt,
like we have
adopt a grand uncle, that kind of a thing? These are
maybe we should. That's such a good idea.
It is, yes.
Maybe we should. We should have adopt a grandma. Where I mean, it sometimes is not necessarily financially tasking. Just be there, just listen, just have conversations with these people who, unfortunately, these are the times when they often feel lonely. But Africa, for instance, is often described as a young continent with young people. Do you think that has affected the way governments across the African continent has addressed issues about senior citizen welfare?
Yes, and it's something that we need to think about. because the focus was on the youths. The youths are the leaders of tomorrow. What about the people who built today for that tomorrow? What are you going to do about them? The thing was that in our traditional cultures, the older people were revered. Older people were taken care of. There was a network of how older people would be, taken care of by the family.
Exactly.
But today, with the Japa syndrome, and even before the Japa syndrome, children were going abroad and they were leaving their parents behind. And it was not only the empty nest syndrome. There is the double jeopardy, as I want to call it, of these people actually migrating and leaving their parents. Parents could call, parents could go and visit, okay, you are coming from Lagos to Abuja, you are going to Enugu from the village, okay. But the thing is that older people are really very stubborn people. They died in the wood. They don't really like to change their environments. But at the same time, they get lonely because with urbanization, when a parent leaves the village to go to the urban area, they don't know anybody.
Right.
Their parents go to work, their children go to work, and they're left alone. Some of their grandparents can't even understand them because of the language.
Exactly.
And so one of the things that we'll want to talk about is how we can use these older citizens to even transmit, to ensure the transmission of culture to the younger ones.
Culture, languages,
and also language.
We are losing.
We are losing.
In fact, let's
them
go
fast.
there. I think we should go there.
Yes.
Because it's something very, very concerning. In Africa, we're beginning to record. In fact, I saw an article where they were talking about several dialects that has gone extinct, unfortunately, and some that will happen in just a couple of years. So, and we're leaving an entire resource that have the richness of this language and cultures
Not
and traditions.
Not only the richness of the culture,
and
the values.
Exactly.
The values
that we once held so highly.
Yes.
So how do you think that 65 can collaborate with not just government at the national, but as it trickles down, government in states?
The Ministry of Culture,
exactly.
Local business, commerce and all, what do they call them? We can collaborate with them. I mean, 65, I find every day that the more we talk about it with people like you, the more we find out that the area is so vast.
Right. There's so much work to do.
There's so much work to do. But now we're just at the beginning. We're beginning to just talk about some certain structural issues, some certain basic things that senior citizens lack. Lack of health care, lack of the understanding of the government and even their own children and society of what they need. Loneliness. How do we stem those problems for the elderly? Who takes care of the elderly when they are sick? The government has put some things in place and is trying to certify caregivers so that there will be a minimum standard. Because as you know, we're also in the area of elder abuse.
Exactly, especially with the advent of internet. There was a report too, it was by the CBN raised alarm about the elder abuse and how they are often targeted for the fraud, the financial fraud that happens. And because they are not as tech savvy, they fall victim to this. Again, there's so much work to do.
Too much work.
I'm not even sure where to start.
Much work, yes.
But in your work in 65, what are those? I know you have a component where people share experiences. Which one has deeply moved you? I mean, I'm not asking for the nitty-gritty of it, but what story deeply moved you and motivated you to do more in the work that you do?
There is something that has resonated, something that most of them have talked about. That's the neglect.
Neglect.
What they call the abandonment of government.
Okay.
Most of them talk about the abandonment of government. Government not doing enough to take care of them, especially with healthcare. Because when you become over 65 into your 70s, there are certain health challenges.
Absolutely.
And so who comes in to do that? Because healthcare is very, not only is it important, it's very expensive. It's very expensive. And so rather than people to access the hospitals, they go to quacks. They go to patent medicine stores. They rely on nurses. They rely on pharmacists. But it's not the same as going to a doctor. It's not the same as having your yearly checkup, so that your primary care physician, your physician can say, this is the problem. This is the problem. Fix it, right? Yes. So the issue of health has resonated.
Unfortunately, when we talk about the issues of health, we're talking a sector that recently made it clear and opened up that even though 218 billion naira was allocated, only 36 million naira was really...
Because I think that all of these things come to the systemic breakdown of our institutions.
Absolutely.
If our institutions were doing the right things, I mean, it's absurd. This is the first we've heard of it, that two budgets are running concurrently. How does that happen? How does that happen? And then we hear that even for those budgets that are maybe 38% what's the word? Implemented, it's only for recurrent.
Yes.
What do you say about those kinds of things?
Well, I mean, so this is, like you said, institutional breakdown. It's not just affecting senior citizens, but I mean, this is also a demographic that must be prioritized. You mentioned in passing nursing homes, and that is something a lot of people do not want to hear.
They don't want to hear about it, but it looks like that is the area that we must go. Otherwise, our senior citizens will not get the kind of care that they need and should have. Because when people are in the nursing homes, the issue of recreation, lack of loneliness is taken care of. At least they will have good medicals, they will have good nutrition. So more and more, and we're seeing that nursing homes are springing up. We're not saying that they're all good, but
at least there are options.
At least there are options.
Maybe we can now start working on standards.
That is the things, working on standards, and that's where the government has come in. That's where the few gerontologists that we have in the whole of the country are trying to say, let's have standards, let's do this. Let it not be like the kind of nursing homes that were for destitutes.
Exactly.
Because when I was growing up and I used to walk to school, there was a nursing home, and these women were all destitute. A few men, some of them may be war veterans, because people with their crutches, with limbs, and all amputated and all of that. But if we can have a structured environment in the nursing home, even in our communities, because in our communities, only the old people, you go through and you find only the old people or the young people who've been sent home because of one misdemeanor or the other to stay with the old people. And these people are so old that even those children don't listen to them anymore. Unfortunately. So we have all of these diverse
So
issues.
hypothetically speaking, let's say we have standard nursing homes across Nigeria, a good number. There's also that issue where children feel like, am I abandoning my parent? Am I not supposed to have my parent as this as uncomfortable as that may be in my home, and that there's that guilt or something.
Of course, there is the guilt.
So what would you suggest for someone watching you right now and saying, listen, I have an elderly mother who I am not able, because of hustle and bustle of work, I'm unable to give that much attention that he deserves or she deserves. Should you feel guilty for saying, you know what, I don't mind paying a nursing home, I will visit intermittently?
Not intermittently, you visit regularly.
Regularly.
You will visit regularly.
Right.
And you will call as often as you can.
Right.
And then make sure that you take your parents to a nursing home that is right for the person.
Right.
Because I know that abroad, you go to the nursing home with some memorabilia, the things that you're used to. Yeah. You may be a widow, or it can be a couple that would go to the nursing home. I'm not here as an advocate for nursing homes, because I still have some issues about that. Because I even have my uncle who unfortunately had to be put in a nursing home. And I can't say that we should feel guilty, because we couldn't have. Because sometimes the nursing homes are very necessary. They're necessary because when people have health problems, some really severe health problems, we are not equipped. We don't have the wherewithal to care and handle them. Right. So in those cases, you can search for and get a nursing home that you know would cater the needs of your parents.
Right.
So don't feel guilty at all.
Don't feel guilty.
It's one of the signs of the times, but make sure it's not intermittent.
It's regular.
Don't abandon the person, because one of the things that people don't like the nursing home for is that they say that it's an abandonment place.
Yes.
You're coming to dump. Just like parents were accused of going to dump their children in daycare when the children were only 6 months. All of these things happen because of expediency, but you must still take responsibility for that care, for that love, and also to pay back, so to speak.
Right.
Pay back all that love, all that sacrifice that your parents gave to you when you were growing up.
Absolutely. Well, believe it or not, we've gone half hour into this conversation. We're going for a short break right now. When we return, we'll talk practical steps African government should take to build stronger social protection systems for senior citizens. We'll be right back. This is still Razep Africa. Stay with us.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.
You are just joining us. We're discussing the senior citizens' welfare. How can African governments, communities, families, and institutions work together to ensure that aging citizens are treated with dignity and protection and respect? That's what we'll be discussing on today's. That's what we've been discussing on the Razep Africa show right here. And in the studio is Dr. Stella Dogu, who, like I said earlier, she's a strong advocate for the elders' welfare. Thank you so much for still staying with us. So practical steps that you think government and communities should take. I mean, you know above everyone those peculiar challenges they face. You've mentioned health, you've mentioned the social isolation, but how can we fix it and start fixing it now? May not be in the biggest and the biggest scale, but what do we start doing?
First of all, there's a need for mass sensitization. And I think the National Senior Citizens is trying to do that. But the sensitization should not only be for government, but also for all of us who are children, who have been parents. And you know that you're a parent, you're going to be a senior citizen tomorrow. There's no getting out of that.
Right.
It's like death.
In fact, it's even a good thing. You don't want to die before you enjoy what Africans like to say, the fruit of your labor.
Yes, so it's important for the government to understand and begin to sensitize people and begin to set up structures from the grassroots level up, because our communities are changing. You talked about urbanization. Before, people could go to a neighbor, go to the market for an older citizen, but today, the villages are almost bare. So there's something to be said about sensitization, setting up structures.
Right.
Then we need to look at the different areas. People talk about pension. Senior citizens love their independence. They don't want to appear to be dependent on people. They're very proud. So make sure that people who have worked in government get their due, get their pensions, get their, there's money that is paid immediately, you get your the gratuities. But people are given their gratuities in trickles. What do they want to do? If somebody even wants to invest in the stock market, how can you invest if today you're asked to come and take 500,000 tomorrow, and it just doesn't make sense. So they need to deepen the level of commitment from those institutions that take care of the older ones. And the pensions should be paid as at when due. Not allow pensioners, legionnaires, all of those people to come and die, to come and faint because they want to come and collect
what is due to them.
What is due to them after all the work that they have done. Then we need to go into different segments. Health is key. The health sector is key. And I'm happy to say that in the last month or so, I think the Abia government, was a trailblazer in this. It wasn't lip service, because a lot of times we just talk the talk
and not
walking the talk. And then a few weeks ago too, the governor of, I think it's Osun State, Governor Adeleke, also decided that they were going to cater for the senior citizens. That is very okay. So those are some practical steps that must be done. Then the issue of caregiving, standardization of caregivers, because we know that a lot of times caregivers add to the abuse of the elderly.
Oh, we've seen very, very gruesome pictures and videos of how these caregivers, I think that would take my question to how can we revive that respect, that reverence we as Africans had for the senior citizens. There was such a time you won't even dare pass by an older person and not
genuflecting at least, minimum.
Yeah.
Again, like you said, we all have to be in this business of collaborating. We all, again, sensitization. What are we doing? Part of our culture. how are we how are we investing
right.
in retrenching our culture? I was at a conference a couple of days ago and saw some children who had even finished their youth service. And what did their father do? Sent them back to Bielsa. Because one, they don't even understand the language.
Oh, no.
So send them back and said, if they come and do their youth service here, at least they will be among the people, and somehow there would be some kind of, there would be some kind of osmosis that would take place for them to understand the language. And when you see younger people just want to walk past you without saying anything. I remember a young lady was walking towards me and I said, good morning, and she just, so I held her. I said, smile. Smile. You need to smile. What is it? And then she said, in fact, she just called me this morning to say, Mommy, I have not met somebody, the mentorship. We need to mentor.
And with warmth.
With warmth. If you're even going to criticize or chastise somebody, do it with love. And that's why they say that we have these proverbs. They say you hit a child with one hand
and to yourself.
And then we are also told that it is the same teeth that the leopard uses to be angry with its cub that he uses to protect.
Right.
Because if it's going to transport that cub from one place to the other, it's still the teeth that it will use to carry the child to safety. So these are some of the things that we need to do. And it has to start at the primary school levels.
Okay.
Because I have heard where they say that some children are afraid of older people.
Afraid of older people?
Older people, except for their grandmas. Because there aren't enough for the older citizen. We're talking about poverty. We're talking about this. We're talking about that. The biggest thing, really, we're talking about health. The biggest issue for the senior citizen is poverty. And so when you're poor, you look ragged.
Exactly. You naturally can no longer take care of yourself.
You can no longer take care of yourself.
And you don't have the
energy to work. And so you look scary. And then you see them say, my pikin, come, and not go do anything. The child has run away. So we need that sensitization. And everybody must be ready to do that sensitization.
So when you have these conversations in your podcast at 65, by the way, that's the most beautiful name I have ever come across. It says everything without saying everything.
Past 65.
Past 65 podcast. You say echoes of wisdom.
Yes.
That's so beautiful.
Nuggets of wisdom.
Yes. So now, when you have these conversations, what's the reception you often get, especially from the younger ones, when they listen to practical issues that older ones face, knowing this will be their reality in not a long time?
It's important. Why I keep harping on sensitization is that it's important for you to know that it's your reality.
Exactly.
In not so many years. Because the years just roll by. I tell God every morning, how did I get here? Who am I? How did you bring me here? I don't know. I just know that I go to bed, I sleep, and I wake up. And then here I am. 76, going on 77.
And you don't look a day like that.
Oh, I need to hear that. I need to hear that.
You don't look a day like a 76.
So it's important for sensitization at various levels. Right from the kindergarten. Because there are many children who don't have grandparents. And so there should be a grandparents' day. And if there's a grandparents' day, send these senior citizens out.
Absolutely.
To go and talk to these children, to go and ask them, touch me. I'm still alive. You know, I just have a little bit more wrinkles than your mother. And I know that a son of mine said, "Mommy, I just wish I could have somebody like you, who would come and talk to us." So that's one of the reasons. I don't know whether I should go there yet.
Yes, please go there.
Where I'm starting what I'm calling QP65 Connect.
QP65 Connect.
Connect.
Okay, what does it mean?
It's part of the podcast.
Okay, like
but it's a
65
Connect. It's part of a community of older people around us. Just to give them an avenue, a non-threatening environment where they can come, throw up their shoes,
and express
themselves, dance, but do exercises. We'll do some exercises, dance the jitterbug, listen to some old music, have some young people come and show us how to do the latest steps and things like that. Yeah, just to have.
That sounds like fun. Yes. I want to be part of this.
Yes.
Am I welcome?
Of course you're welcome.
I'm not 65 yet.
Not yet, but that's what we're talking about, the intergenerational gap closing.
To be closed, exactly. Yes. Exactly. So another thing, you keep hammering on how important healthcare is. Some people are saying that maybe the government should have initiatives where we have health insurance.
Definitely.
That's targeted.
Definitely
just
more.
Coined up for the senior
old citizens.
Yes.
Very important.
Or have geriatric programs for senior citizens. With the breakdown of, like, we have established institutions here, how do you think, even if there is the good intentions of government, how do you think communities can hammer on this to make it work and implemented?
There are community centers. There are community hospitals. There are maternity hospitals. There were old childbirth attendants. We don't have to do away with them completely. So in those places, I know that for a mother, antenatal care, you have the women all come, and before anything, I don't know at what point, after they've taken their vitals and this and talked to them and showed them, some movies on the screen, we can do that for our senior citizens.
Right.
It doesn't have to be every week. It can be once a month, where all the senior citizens, we in my community, we love the older people. We even have a coinage for the oldest woman, Amako Sarah and Amako Sowe, and they really feel good. They strut, but you can have a senior citizens day in your community.
Exactly.
So that you help them, you do blood pressure. That's one of the things that Quarter-past-65 Connect is going to do. You do eye pressure checks, you do this and do that. That is very important. That is so important. But hey, Quarter-past-65 podcast is only one program out of many that we should be having to also help in this advocacy of understanding the senior citizen, because there's also another thing, we don't understand them. We don't understand who the senior citizens are. Sometimes when the senior citizen says, "Leave me alone," that's the time you should know to not leave them alone. Not that you should press, but to say, "Grandma, please don't be upset, I didn't say it." But today, Gen Z or the millennial, you said, "Leave me alone," so they're going and really leaving you alone, Or when they see an older person abroad, an older person is crossing, even on a zebra. You just see somebody out of the blues coming to help that person cross. Do you find that here? "Mama, what do they do? Go home, sit down." Then go say, "Make una no come out." Then you start calling them names. All these witches and wizards. And when I don't kill all the pikin chop finish. I mean, what's the meaning of that? You hear all kinds of things. So when you hear that, the older citizen just recedes, and they get more and more into themselves, and that is not good.
This reminds me so much of of an engagement I had, because I also work with an organization that caters for the elderly, the senior citizens, and the stories I heard were mind-boggling. You heard people tell you, well, I had an only son who has passed now. I'm by myself, and the community considers me a witch, and so I just stay by myself. We went distributing, so they were so grateful for those things that we give. For people in urban areas, we don't even get to see senior citizens a lot, but there are fundamental issues that must be addressed, and addressed quickly. And I hope that government is listening to us, and taking notes on how to ensure that this isn't a problem moving forward. But what you've mentioned, 65 Connect. What else do you have planned? Because you are always, I've never met you and not had a new idea. What do you have planned beyond the 65 Connect, and what do you hope to achieve, say, in the next 5 years?
Wow, there is so much. We are going to talk about the economy.
Okay. How
do senior citizens stay independent financially?
Okay.
After all of those years, because the pension is never going to be enough, especially in this economy. How do they do that? How do they stay healthy? How do they engage? I am very lucky. I'm happy to be engaging with you.
Exactly. And this cognitive engagement often
also helps. So how do they stay cognitively engaged so that they don't slip into depression and then go into dementia and all of those things, because people don't even understand. And sometimes it is dementia that makes older citizens to be called witches and witchcraft and whatever, that engaging in witchcraft, because you find them just roaming aimlessly because they've forgotten. If I can forget where I kept my keys, or practically what you see on the internet, it happened. You're holding your, like, where is my phone? Or the one that was holding one half pair of sneakers and saying, where is
turning round and
round.
I mean, these are not children. If a young person in his youth can, the one I saw that was quite funny was he had his baby in his head and was
rolling the stroller,
and went over, was looking all over,
and the child was there.
So if you can forget.
Yes. So those are the things. Going into all of these things, talking to experts, different experts.
Okay.
Different experts, having them to come and talk, and talking about experiences. Widowhood.
Oh, that's another concept.
How do you deal with the loss of a loved one,
right,
of a spouse that you've been together with for 40 years, 50 years? I was with a widow. We interviewed them both, and they were sharing experiences, how they got married and things. And the man just died. Just this year. And I went visiting. And I said, Auntie, how are you? She says, I'm okay. But then she said, I don't understand it. Some people came to visit, condolence visit, but she wasn't thinking condolence visit. She was saying, Tisha anybody? That is, if my husband comes, I'm going to tell him that these people visited and share. And then it was later that something struck her. And she said, he's not coming back. Am I going to the mortuary?
Oh, no. Wow. That story is so touching. But we really have run out of time. That's to say you need to return, because we must continue this conversation. Okay. We have run out of time. Thank you so much, Dr. Stella Dogo, for this insight you have given into the lives of senior citizens in Nigeria and what must be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope to be here.
Yes, you would
come
indeed
back
return.
again
This is
share.
an advocacy we cannot stop right
Yes,
here.
we
There's
can
so
stop.
much to be
Yes.
done. Thank you so much, viewers, for being part of Razep Africa this beautiful morning. That has been Dr. Stella Dogo, an author, media producer of an anchor rather of the 65 show. We've had an interesting conversation looking inside the lives of Nigerian senior citizens. We'll be back next time with so much more, so do have yourself a wonderful rest of the day.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.